bends toward silence. The friend of God breathes out the light. 175 years, written and fulfilled in time. His days were full, his faith unbroken, a covenant carried through the night. He walked with God through dust and promise, through famine, fire, and foreign land. Now the weight of every blessing settles softly in his hands. He gathered his sons around him, and the earth grew still to hear
the passing of Abraham,
the oath still breathing in his name.
the passing of Abraham,
A life laid down without shame.
the passing of Abraham,
From dust to rest, from call to crown.
the passing of Abraham,
But the promise stays unbound. Isaac stood beside Ishmael, old wounds quiet in the grave. Together they bore their father to the field he bought with faith. Machpelah received the righteous, but Sarah waited in the ground. The cave that held the covenant, now sealed without a sound. The angels gathered silent as the faithful crossed the veil.
the passing of Abraham,
The friend of God laid down to sleep.
the passing of Abraham,
What heaven swore the earth will keep.
the passing of Abraham,
No throne, no sword, no crown of flame.
the passing of Abraham,
Only faith remains. The days were completed, the years fulfilled. He died satisfied and was gathered to his people. No riches followed after him, no kingdoms carved in stone. Only altars in the wilderness, and a promise handed on. What was sworn upon the tablets still moves through flesh and time. A seed counted as the star, a line the dark can't blind.
the passing of Abraham,
Yet the covenant still stands,
the passing of Abraham,
the future written in his hands.
the passing of Abraham,
The earth received what heaven knew,
the passing of Abraham,
and the promise carried through.
from dust to rest, from voice to silence, from man to memory, from memory to promise. The passing of Abraham, the passing of Abraham.
Before the womb ever opened, the word was already spoken. Two lives wrestled in the darkness before the day had found their skin. One came burning red and restless, one was quiet, drawn within. The elder breathed the dust of fields, the younger learned to wait and hear. The promise hovered between them like a weight they could not steer. Some inherit fire, some inherit time. Esau hunted the dying daylight, strength's been chasing passing blood. Jacob watched the silence deepen as hunger ruled where patience stood. The oath was older than the moment, but desire spoke louder still. What was sworn before their breathing was bartered for a passing fit. He traded what he could not measure for relief that could not last. What is holy weighs the heaviest when the flesh demands release. What is promised asks for waiting. What is rushed is always cheap. He sold tomorrow for the present. Let the unseen slip away. In the silence of that choice still echoes to this day. Rebekah kept the word remembered, spoken long before their cries. The elders serving what he despised, the younger bearing hidden eyes. No sword was drawn, no blood was spilled, yet destinies were torn apart. Some wars are fought in empty bowls, some crowns are lost inside the heart. He despised the birthright,
counted as nothing. But heaven records what hunger makes men forget.
Some inherit fire, some inherit time, some chase the moment, some outlive the night. Before the choice, before the cry, the word remains, and still remains. The fire remembered. The knife remembers still. From laughter turned to silence, he learned the weight of sacred hills. His father's hands were steady, but heaven held its breath. The wood was stacked with mercy, between obedience and death. He carried what was given. He trusted what was said. After he came down, some fires hunger for the first word. No need to prove his right. He knew the sound of silence and the weight of being spared. Some men are shaped by conquest, some by knowing God was there. He was not taken. He was returned. The altar kept the memory. The mountain kept the mark. He carried what was given. He trusted what was said. He lived because the promise spoke louder than the dead. From knife to mercy, from fire to breath, the altar remembers, and so does flesh. The road stretched silent, and the well waited.
Beneath the load, bearing silver, bearing vows for a son who stayed at home. He prayed beside the ancient stones as evening cooled the air, asking heaven for a sign before despair.
Let the water answer first. Rebekah came with quiet strength, a vessel resting on her side. She lowered it without a word, where hope and thirst collide.
She drew the water patiently for him and all he led, and in that act of kindness, the future quietly spread.
Before she knew his master's name, the oath had found her breath. What is chosen does not thunder, it arrives in humble grace. Heaven hides its turning points in ordinary days. A single yes beneath the stars, a kindness freely given. into the design of heaven.
The servant watched in silence as the last drops touched the sand. The prayer was answered fully without the raising of a hand.
Bracelets caught the fading light, gold resting on her skin, the weight of Abraham's promise settling in. She did not know the covenant. She did not see the line. But mercy met obedience. At the well appointed in time. What is chosen does not shout, it waits where hearts are still. Faith is found in offering before the world bends to the will. The promise moves through quiet hands, through water drawn in trust, and destiny is sealed without the sound of dust. She left before the morning, and the well remembered her. The tent was quiet. The fire burned low. Isaac's eyes had faded, but his hands remembered true. The smell of fields and garments, the sound of sons long grown to you. The elder hunted in the daylight, the younger waited near, while Rebekah held the oracle she had carried through the years. The word was spoken long ago. She clothed Jacob in another name, wrapped his arms in borrowed skin, prepared the meal with careful hand to draw the blessing in. Jacob's voice betrayed his body, fear trembling in his breath, but the promise pressed him forward past the edge of theft.
stand. The word does not tremble in the mouth of man.
What heaven sets in motion does not ask for clean design. It moves through grief and consequence and cuts the crooked line. The cost is real, the sorrow stays. The fracture will not heal, but the promise carries on beyond what flesh can feel.
The dead went silent. And nothing was the same.
A scream tore through the tents, not born of anger, but of loss that could not be undone. He came with meat and promise, with the labor of his hands, expecting words of favor from a father old and blind. But the air was thick with silence, and the blessing already gone, spoken once and never broken, lost before he knew it won. Is there nothing left for me? His voice shook the ancient ground, the hills heard his cry. He begged for what was never his, though his tears did not lie. Isaac trembled in his weakness, knowing truth had sealed the day. The vow could not be summoned back, no matter what he'd say. The word had left his mouth, and heaven would not bend. Some losses cannot be recovered, some doors do not reopen wide. The blessing spoken into silence leaves another soul behind. Love does not erase the fracture, nor does grief rewrite the old. What is taken stays taken when the vow has left the throne. Hatred grew where love had lived, a brother turned away. The wound became a future that would not let him stay. The field received his bitterness, the night received his breath, and vengeance whispered softly through the language of his death. He wept bitterly, and his cry was heard, but the blessing remained where it was placed. Some tears arrive too late, some cries are born in vain. unspoken whispers of a road he must now take, not toward promise or favor, but away for mercy's sake. Leave now, or blood will follow. He gathered nothing but his breath and the weight of what he stole. No hurts, no servants, no farewell, just the fracture in his soul. The ground knew he was leaving. The night refused to sleep. Some destinies are carried by the ones who have to flee. The house that shaped his name could no longer keep him whole. Some promises push you outward, some blessings break the door. The path of the chosen is not sheltered anymore. Love can turn to distance, fear can wear a brother's face, and the road into the darkness becomes the appointed place. He did not curse his father, he did not raise his hand. He carried what was spoken beyond the edge of land. Behind him stayed the sorrow, ahead the unknown cost. Some men are not driven forward, they are sent away lost. He fled from the face of his brother, not because he was faithless, but because the promise was heavier than the house could bear. Some call it running, heaven calls it time. The seed is kept in exile before it learns father's voice, just fear of what he said. The road behind him whispered blood, the road ahead unknown. Between the dark and deeper dark, he slept there alone. No roof but heaven. The ground remembered ancient vows, older than his name. The dust beneath his restless bones still burned with hidden flame. He closed his eyes in exile, with guilt pressed in his chest, and the earth received his body as if it knew the rest. The silence tore itself open, and heaven leaned toward him. What is fled from finds you sleeping. What is sworn descends in dreams. The weight of God does not announce. It moves through quiet seams. Between the dust and distant stars, a vow began to rise, and the lonely learn that heaven still remembers where he lies. He saw a path no foot could take, a reaching without hands. The messengers moved up and down between the worlds of man. Above it stood the God who spoke, the promise still the same. No matter where your steps may fall, the oath will know your name. I am with you. I will keep you. I will bring you back. This ground is not forsaken. The stone remembered his breathing, and the ground was never the same. stood without a sound. No thunder marked its place. Between the dust beneath his bones and the cold of endless space. No wings disturb the darkness. No voices filled the air. They moved as if the silence was the language that they shared. They rise, they fall. No message shouted downward. No command split the night. They carried out the hidden will beyond the reach of sight. He watched them pass like currents through a sky that did not burn. Learning heaven does not rush what it intends to turn. Between the vow and the waiting, motion learned to kneel.
Not every miracle arrives in fire. Not every word is heard aloud. Some truths move through the stillness, unannounced and unavowed. The faithful are not always spoken to.
Some are simply shown that heaven never stands still, even when you lie alone. Above the past stood presence, unmoved by fear or shame, repeating what was sworn before, without rewriting names. The earth beneath him trembled, not from wrath but recognition that exile had not broken the direction of the vision. The messengers did not pause. The vow did not change. The promise moved continuously, whether watched or unseen.
What is eternal does not hurry. What is chosen does not fail. The distance between heaven and flesh is thinner than the veil.
He woke beneath the open sky, anew without a sign that silence is not absence when the covenant is mine. The ladder faded with the morning, but the ground remembered the way. withdrew in stages from the stone-anointed oil. A vow still hung above him, like a blade that would not spoil. He rose with fear and reverence, unsure of where he'd stand, but sure the voice that called his father still moved across the land. No altar burned to guide him, no sign split open skies. The one who sees still watches through the exile and the years. The one who sees still watches through the doubt and through the fear. What he spoke is not forgotten. What he swore will not decay. The one who sees still watches and has not turned away. Not every God demands a city, not every God a throne. The one who spoke to Abraham walks roads unknown. No fire fell to mark the moment, no voice shook the plain. Only words that do not weaken when the witness walks away. The promise does not wander, though the chosen often do. The one who sees still watches through the hunger and the flight. The one who sees still watches when the path is lost to sight. What was spoken lives beyond him, written deeper than the stone. The one who sees still watches, and he never walks alone. I will be with you. I will guard your steps. I will bring you back. This word does not expire. He named the ground with trembling hands, as if the dust could hear. Some places change forever when heaven draws near. No walls enclose the moment, no glory mark the air. Only the weight of being known wherever he might dare. The one who sees still watches through the waiting and the pain. The one who sees still watches till the scattered are regained. What was promised to the fathers still unfolds by unseen hand. The one who sees still watches over dust and promised land. Morning found him moving onward, but heaven did not move away.
night. Close behind him, the ground refused to sleep. No blade, no altar, no voice to lead, only the weight that followed his feet. Do not let me go. Hands found him without warning. Not blessing, not wrath, breath against breath. Dust pressed into flesh. I was folding inward as the dark learned his name. Not angel, not man, not dream, not death. No words were spoken, yet everything was said. The promise tightened its grip around bone, around breath, around all he had fled. Do not let me go. Strength drained into the ground. Time thin to pain. The hollow burned and the body learned what the vow would demand. You have contended. You have endured. You are no longer called what you were. The grip loosened, not from defeat, but from completion. A name surfaced from the wound, and the night released its hold. I will not let you go. He crossed the river limping, and the night stayed behind, but it never forgot him. Dawn did not cure the damage. It only showed the cost. The river lay behind him. The night was finally lost. A name was carved in silence.
a blessing paid in pain. He stood beneath the open sky, and nothing felt the same. Remembered what the dark had taken. Every breath confessed what could not be undone. He walked, marked. The camp rose up before him, familiar faces near, but none could read the meaning of why he lingered here. No crown announced the moment, no shout declared his gain, only a body taught forever by the language of pain. What heaven touches does not return unchanged. Some blessings leave a scar, some promises demand a toll. What is taken in the darkness is carried by the soul. Strength does not always conquer, faith does not always heal. Some victories are written in wounds you always feel. He leaned upon the morning like a man relearning ground. The sun did not accuse him, it only moved around. The past did not release him, the future did not rush. Between what broke and what was sworn, he learned to walk in trust. He walked, chosen. You asked for the blessing, and you received it. You asked to be changed, and you were. Are bought with struggle, some paths are born in fear. What heaven seals in midnight is not erased by years. The wound became the witness, the limp became the sign that what he
fire or flame. What he was fell behind him. What he is stayed unclear. The dark kept what it gave him, and dawn did not interfere. Call me what you see. The camp slept in nowhere of what the river claimed. A man crossed back to daylight, carrying a different weight. No crown, no mark of triumph, just a truth that wouldn't speak. Some names are taught in silence and learned in ways too deep. The past loosens its grip when the night signs the skin. A name written in the dark where no one else could read. A vow pressed into breathing between the wound and need. He walks beneath the morning, not hiding what he bears. A name written in the dark, still burning in the air. He remembers who he was, but does not answer there. The sound of it feels distant, like smoke within a prayer. What heaven chooses to rename does not ask the crowd. The truest words are spoken where the dark is loud. You are not what you took. You are not what you fled. You are what remained. When the night finished, a name written in the dark outlives the light of day. What heaven marks in shadow, the sun cannot erase. He moves with quiet purpose, through promise and through scar. A name written in the dark is known for what you are. Morning learned his footsteps, but the night kept his name.
future, learning fear, face to face with day. The wound still spoke in echoes, but no longer ruled his stride. What darkness taught his body, the light would now abide. He did not chase the blessing, he carried it inside. Some truths are made for walking, not proving, not denied. The night released its hold, but left the mark behind. Dawn over Peniel, the light finds where you stand. Dawn over Peniel, a name held in your hand. What heaven gives in shadow, the sun will not erase. Dawn over Peniel, mercy meets the face. The camp began to stir, unaware of what had changed. The same man crossed their threshold, but nothing was the same. He did not speak the story, he let the silence tell. Some victories are carried more than they are held. I saw you and lived. I was broken and blessed. I crossed the night and found the day. Dawn over Peniel, the fear no longer leads. Dawn over Peniel, her life remained in need. The wound becomes a witness, the limb becomes the sign. Dawn over Peniel, where night and promise align. He stepped into the light, and kept moving.
he still knew his own. The past clung tight like dust and bone, but something deeper had been sown. The night had stripped him down to truth. No titles left to claim or steal. What rose from pain and broken pride was more than Jacob could conceal. You are not what you were. The blessing was not shouted, it settled like a brand, a name carved out by unseen hands, pressed deep into the land. No crown was set upon his head, no throne beneath his feet, only a people yet unborn, stirring in his sleep. Not by strength, not by scheme, but by enduring what was seen. Called by a name from the darkness, marked by the struggle alone. Israel born in the night, carrying promise and bone. Not lifted by conquest or might, but changed where the unseen revealed. Israel shaped by the wound that refused to heal. Esau waited in the daylight, 400 at his side. The fear returned like an old song, but did not take the guy. He bowed not out of weakness, but from a deeper will. Some wars are won by standing still. You strove, you endured, you did not turn back, and the name remains. Called by a name from the darkness, sealed in the breaking of night. Israel walks into morning, not whole but made right. The wound still teaches every step, the promise still is real. breath held tight. He stepped ahead of the camp, counted his children with his eyes, not to protect the blessing, but to face the cost of life. The ground remembered brothers before the wound and name, before the hunger and the fear, before the vow became flame. Do not look away. Esau closed the distance, arms not yet declared. Every step a question, every silence bared. What the night had carved in secret now stood in open day. Some reckonings are answered before a word can say. Mercy ran before the sword, grace arrived unarmed. What was feared for years and years fell quiet in his arms. The past did not demand its due, the wound did not decide. Forgiveness crossed the open field where hatred should have cried. They wept without a language, no debt left to be named. The old rage lost its power, the new name held its claim. No blessing was reclaimed, no wrong undone. Only brothers standing still under the same sun. What I feared you had become, you were not. What you feared I still was, I was not. Mercy ran before the sword and closed the ancient score. The past laid down its weapons at the threshold of the door. What heaven seals in darkness, sometimes dawn makes plain. Two lives step back from history and do not strike again. They parted without faces once unnamed. The stone still bore the oil scar, the ground still knew the name. He came not as the one who fled, nor as the man who schemed, but as the one the night had broken and quietly redeemed. Come back and remember. The household gathered silently, put foreign gods aside. The old ways buried under oak, where shame was laid to die. He built the altar once again, not chasing what had been, but answering the voice that said, return, and I will remain. What was sworn before the exile still waited in this place. He came back changed and carrying the weight of what he knew. Some vows must be returned to earth before they carry you. The promise does not follow noise, it waits where it was heard. He stood again at Bethel, were gathered quietly, 180 strong. The son who carried fire and wood had walked the road long. No altar stood before him now, no knife above his breath, only the stillness of a life that learned to live with death. And he was gathered. Esau stood together, the past laid down its claim. No hunger spoke between them, no blessing left to name. They bore him to the resting place, prepared by faithful hands, where Abraham and Sarah lay in the promised land. What was given returns to dust, what was sworn remains. He walked beneath the promise, and now he rests beneath the stone. The vow did not depart with him, nor leave his seed alone. What heaven spoke through Abraham still breathes beyond the grave. The son who once was spared by fire is gathered whole and saved. The tents grew quiet afterward. The well still knew his name. Some lives do not demand a crown to bear eternal flame. He lived between the knife and vow, between the earth and sky, and in that narrow sacred space learned how the faithful die. He was not taken by the blade. He was not lost to flame. He lived beneath the promise and returned the same. He walked beneath the promise, and now he sleeps in peace. The covenant did not grow weak, because his breath did cease. The ground received his faithful bones, the oath did not decay. What heaven seals in quiet lives still finds its way. He was gathered to his people. And the promise did not sleep. gathered to his people, and the promise did not sleep.
The tent stood still at dawn. No words rose with the wind. The mother of the promise was carried in by kin. She crossed from breath to silence as generations do. What was given through her waiting, still living, still true. She bore the line. No trumpet marked her passing, no sign tore open skies, only memory in the ground and tears in human eyes. She followed those before her to the place already known, where Sarah first lay waiting and the fathers would be sown. The promise does not pause when the faithful sleep. She rests within the covenant where the mothers wait in peace. What heaven shaped through patience, the grave cannot release. Her life was not loud thunder, but the vow she carried through. She rests within the covenant, and the promise carries through. She watched the sons divide and held the unseen word. She chose the quiet pathway that heaven once conferred. Some destinies are guarded, not by strength but trust. What is formed in waiting outlives the dust. She is gathered with the mothers. Her name is not forgotten. She rests within the covenant where the faithful now remain. The vow did not grow weaker because her breath was slain. What heaven spoke in silence still moves from bone to bone. She rests within the covenant, but she does not rest alone. The ground received her gently, and the promise did not sleep.
fathers walked their days in faith and crossed the final gate of death. Abraham, the called and chosen, Isaac spared and faithful still, Jacob broken into promise by the night that bent his will. They are gathered, not as kings with crowned dominion, not as conquerors bathed in flame, witnesses of the covenant, marked forever by the name. Each step carved into history, each silence heard above. Their lives became the tablets of obedience and love. The earth received their bodies, heaven kept the vow.
Gather to their people,
Where the faithful finally stand,
gather to their people.
by the oath that shaped the land,
What was sworn to dust and breath,
was not buried, was not lost,
gathering of the fathers,
still defines the cost. The cave beneath the ancient trees now holds the weight of years. Sarah, Rebekah resting, beside the sons of tears. No voice breaks the silence, no fire splits the stone, but the promise fills the darkness like a pulse beneath the bone. They are not ended, they are not erased. They sleep within the covenant, and the covenant remains.
gather to their people,
Yet the promise walks ahead,
gather to their people.
but the vow was never dead. From altar, well, and wilderness, from night, from womb